Hey class, Prof JC here. I hope every single one of you enjoyed your spring break a couple weeks ago and then enjoyed kind of the week without the podcast last week. But I'm excited to get back into this. I'm really excited because I'm already hearing from a couple students who want to join me on the podcast. And so I'm really looking forward to that. And again, we've got a few weeks left. If you want to join me on the podcast, please do. It's just going to be fun. I appreciate conversation with students, especially leadership students, because all of you, this is the great thing about working with grad students. Every single one of you come with your own kind of set of experiences and knowledge and how you see the world and your leadership experiences. And so bringing all that together in a conversation, challenging me, challenging our content, all of that's great. So I'm looking forward to that. So I hope you've had a good break, but I'm really excited to kind of end this semester strong, especially being able to hear from some of you when it comes to the podcast. Today, I want to talk about incentives. And this is from chapter 10 in our book here, Good Profit. I'm just telling you, this book is gold right here. Now, I'm a little bit biased here. A couple of years ago, I started studying Charles Koch and his book. I think I've told you this before, that there's a larger book out there called Kochland, Kochland. And it's supposed to be a book that kind of talks against Charles Koch, but what it does is really give all the secrets to how he built the second largest private company in the world. And it's like a 700-page book, but it is phenomenal. Highly recommend you get this. But this book is from Charles Koch, and it just kind of gives the behind the scenes. So he talks about this idea of incentives. And the reason why we're talking about this in a class that's about service is because, again, we're putting together this idea of service, which then is going to lead to mission. So we're going to be writing out our mission here in the next few weeks. But what I want you to think of is on the mission that you have in life, in business, and leadership, that at the core of that, at the foundation of that, at the very center of your mission, kind of where you're going in life, the steps that you're going to take to reach your purpose and your vision, to live out your principles and values. My hope is that all of that has a foundation of service. And here's what I would tell you is that, and I think that this is the point I hope that the content of this class makes over the next few weeks and has made, is that when you live a life of service from a mindset of service, that means that you're giving back to the marketplace. You're not coming from a place of neediness, that when you give back to the marketplace, that it will reward you in terms of profit and in terms of the things that you want. But it starts with this idea. Matter of fact, the other day I was, I don't know if I was reading something, but I ended up writing this in my journal. It just became so clear to me. Giving versus investing, right? There's three kinds of ways that we kind of approach the marketplace. One, we're takers, right? There are people who are takers, and you have people who are givers, and then you have people who are investors. And this goes back to this whole idea of mutual benefit. A person who's a giver will approach the marketplace. Let me start with the taker. A person who's a taker will approach the marketplace and just take and consume everything they can. This is what most of the marketplace is. It's what forms the marketplace. It's what moves the marketplace. So many people are takers. I'm reading a book right now on John D. Rockefeller. And as he got mega rich in his later years, the gentleman Frederick Gates, who led John Rockefeller's foundation, said the more he was around people, or the more wealthy John Rockefeller became, the more this Frederick Gates guy, who was in charge of John Rockefeller's foundation, the more disgusted he became with human behavior, because he saw so many people who just took and wanted more and wanted more. And they just wanted to use John Rockefeller for his money. And that's how most people approach the marketplace. It's this consumer mindset, take all we can, okay? So that's one mindset. The other mindset is the mindset of a giver. So someone who approaches the mindset and they just give. And they give, and they give. But this is the person who has what's called compassion fatigue at the very end of all of that. And they reach a point where they're not able to serve the marketplace. They're not able to be of service anymore. Why? Because they have given so much, and the marketplace will take and take and take, and it will leave you on the side of the road, homeless, dry, destitute, because that's what the marketplace does. It's just how it works. And so these people will give and give and give and then reach a point where they can't give anymore. So neither one of these is a way of living a life of service where you're just taking, that's all about you, and where you're just giving. And what I wrote out in my journal, and I'm going to write a blog post on this or something at some point. The one thing that I wrote out in my the journal was that when you approach the world from this perspective, either one of these, it starts with taking. Okay. So it's either the person who's taking from the marketplace or it's the other person who's being taken from. So the third way to look at it, which I think is the best way to look at the marketplace, is a mindset of investing. And this leads to a mindset of service. So a mindset of investing begins this: I'm going to give you something. So let's say it's money. Okay. I love to, my family and I, we just watched the movie Uber or Super Pumped on Netflix. Highly recommend you all watch that. Incredible movie, and it kind of tells the downfall. Well, not really the downfall. We all still use Uber to this day. I used it a whole bunch last week. But it kind of gives the downfall of the first CEO, kind of why he lost his position, why he had to be kind of taken out of the company. And so I highly recommend that you watch it. I don't know how I got off on that, but the point I'm trying to make is this. Okay, so investing. The reason why I brought that up is because he deals a lot with his original investor, Bill Gurley, who's a major investor from Benchmark Capital, based out of San Francisco. Anyway, when you invest in something, you start by giving something. So let's say it's money. So let's say or I'm coming to you. Okay, I'm coming to you. You've got, you're worth $100 million and I need like 3 million. So I come to you. You start off by giving to me. Okay. So that's the first part of the transaction, is you're giving to me, but you give to me. Why? So that I can take that $3 million that you give to me and I can grow something. I can develop something. I can grow a product or a business or a company or people or all of it. Right. So that the company grows. That in turns, that $3 million investment that you give me, it then grows and maybe it becomes a $6 million or a 10 million or $1 billion, right? Like some of these companies, Facebook, Uber, if you can imagine being a Series A investor with some of these, right? A seed investor, an angel investor, right? But they give, but the purpose is to help somebody else grow something, and then the benefit comes in the back end. If that business, if you give me $3 million out of your 100 million, and I'm able to grow a business, grow people, all this stuff, and able to turn that back to you, and now the company is worth 500 million. Well, and let's say you signed up for a 21% stake of my, of that three. With the 3 million you gave me, you now have a 21% stake in the company. That company went from 1 million to 500 million. You now have a 21% percent stake in 500 million versus that 1 million, right? So all that to say, a life of service is really a life of investment. It's giving so that you can receive on the other end. And so that's the hope that I make. So this idea of incentives, here's what Charles Koch talks about, that this is a big part, because in order to get your product or service off the shelf into the hands of your client, into the hands of your customer, it's going to take moving people in a certain direction. You've got to be able to do that. Okay. That's the leadership aspect. That's all this, everything we're talking about here. Okay. So how do we do that? Well, one of the ways that Charles Koch talks about is this idea of incentives. It's really important that we really think through incentives. So I just want to read a few statements that he makes in the book, and then I'll kind of leave you with the question to process. He talks about this. He starts off this chapter 10, again in the book Good Prophet, and he says, why at the age of 79 do I put in 9-hour days at the office and then go back to work at home after I've exercised and had dinner with Liz? That's his wife. It's not for mortgages or tuitions, at least not anymore, since our children are grown, educated, and married. I certainly don't claim to lead an aesthetic life, but neither at accumulating material goods nor amassing a big pile of money has ever been an incentive for me to work. And if you study, yes, he's a billionaire. Okay, he's worth like 65 billion or something like that. But if you study Charles Koch, one of the things you know about him, and this is why I have so much respect for him as a human being, his work really is his passion. And he has been someone, I think they still do it to this day. 90% of their profits they reinvest back in the company. So they're constantly reinvesting back in the company. Whereas a lot of other companies, especially companies who you see on the wayside and you see the the companies that become the cautionary tales are the ones that give out massive dividends to their shareholders. And so instead of reinvesting that profit, maybe giving smaller dividends, what they do is they want to make sure everyone gets rich. And they're the ones who've got all the private planes and they've got all the excesses, right? They've got the major parties that are in massive places around the world, and they're they've got limousines and you know corporate excess. That's what I want you to think of. Okay. Now we see a lot less of that today because I think we've learned our lesson from the 80s or 90s. But if you see that in a company, what they're taking are their profits, and instead of reinvesting it back into the company to grow the company more, to use the money, to grow more profits, what they're doing instead is they're using it for waste in a lot of ways and parties and stuff like that. Charles Koch has not done that. Okay, if you read about him behind the scenes, he really is. He lives a very simple life, and he's got a beautiful home in Wichita. He's got another one out here in California. I'm sure he rides private jet. He's got security. He's one of the richest men in the world. He's one of the richest people in the world with hundreds of thousands of employees. So he's got all that stuff. But when you study the foundation of his company, it really is this kind of conservative way of looking at money and conservative way of business. And it's really about how do we just keep growing and keep expanding. Okay. And so what he says here is my motivation for hard work has always been my need to lead a life of meaning, a fulfilling life. I want to do my best to make a difference in the world. That's what I want from you. That's what I want from myself, right? To consistently, every day we get up is to be thinking, how do we give back to her? How do we use the talents that we've been given, the gifts that we've been given to impact the world in a greater way? It's not about us. It's always about, again, a mindset of service. It's always about helping, giving to the marketplace. I'd rather die for something than live for nothing. So then we go on page 194. Every company should strive to leverage incentives to motivate all employees to fully develop and apply their capabilities to maximize long-term value for the company in a principled way. So what is he saying there? If you want your employees, and again, you can't build massive companies on your own, and if you want to get a business degree or a leadership degree, at some point you're going to have to help move people forward towards the goal. This should be it right here. Okay. If you want other people to live a life of service and to have a mindset of service, again, I'm investing or you're investing in me, right? I take that money and I do that and I grow whatever. And then that grows. And again, the same thing when we think about how we build a product, it should be from a mindset of investment. Okay. I spend money on this product. I take this product to the market. Okay. And my hope is that many people buy the product, but that product improves their lives and helps to change their lives and helps make it better, whatever it is, for profit, nonprofit. And then what are they going to do? Come back and get more. Okay. And by improving their lives, it doesn't have to be, I think of McDonald's. McDonald's is probably one of the worst things you can put in your body, but I like a McDonald's cheeseburger. I like McDonald's fries, right? But what have they done? They've learned how to. They're a staple in American life, but even I think at the core, there's a mindset of service to the marketplace. What they've done is they've made quick, fast food, so people when they're on the rush, they're on the go. They need to get that fast food quick. But when I was a kid, it was so much. It was even more intense where you could go into McDonald's. And I remember Friday nights were kind of a big deal. I didn't grow up in a rich home, so we went to McDonald's for our out to eat. But you'd go in there and they'd have a play center there, and all the birthday parties in our local town. I grew up in a small city, but all the birthday parties would be at the local McDonald's. So what they did was they added value. And what did people keep doing? They kept coming back. They kept coming back because it's quick. You get these fries and burgers in and out kind of the same way. They've created an experience, right? So that's really important. So how do we do that? We've got to help to motivate our employees, and employees are motivated through incentives. Okay. Page 195, for example, when a company rewards the role of manager more than the act of creating value. So it's talking here. The problem in most companies is, and maybe you've seen this in your own company, what people do is they reward, instead of rewarding, how do you put it? Instead of rewarding the work instead of rewarding the mindset of service. What they reward is the position. So what happens, and this is what Charles Koch is saying, people become more they become more motivated by the new position because they want more money, and managers get more money rather than how do I create more value for our customer. Okay. And so that becomes a problem. That's the problem with our incentive structure today. People don't have a mindset of service because what they're thinking is, I just want more money so I can have a nicer home, have nicer cars. And the way to get that is to become a manager. And how do I become a manager? I got to step on everyone else around me so I can get this promotion and someone else doesn't get it, as opposed to how do I just create more value for for the customer. Okay. Now, the ideal thing, and we've talked about this a little bit in this class, is you want to make sure you're hiring people who are self-actualized, or you want to give your employees a way to become more self-actualized. And he talks all about this on page 197, right? Self-actualization. Maslow defines self-actualization as the highest level of satisfaction and happiness that an individual can achieve. Okay. For those who are self-actualizing, work becomes a part of how they define themselves. They need to feel they are working for a worthwhile cause or a good company and are benefiting others as well as themselves. And he uses the quote down here: a musician must make music, an artist must paint, a poet must write, if he is to be, or he or she is to be ultimately happy. And then it goes on to say, what a man or woman, I would add there, can be, he or she must be. This need we may call self-actualization. It refers to the desire for self-fulfillment, namely to the tendency for him to become actualized in what he or she uh, uh, in what he or she is potentially. All that is to say, our goal should be to help people reach their full and highest potential for the aim of the organization, right? It's not just about helping people reach their full and highest potential so they can do whatever they want. It's how do we maximize, leverage your talents, leverage your gifts, leverage your abilities so you can be of service to the company, so you can be of service to our clients, to the community, whoever it is, okay? Let me just keep going here and see if there's anything else I need to read. I think there's a couple more other things. There's something else that I put a star by here. I just want to make sure to get to that. Okay. So here's what he says again, and this will be the last thing that we kind of end up with here. I want to make sure there's nothing else. He says this: to achieve good profit, that's the name of the book here, companies should pay people in a way that motivates them to create maximum long-term value while faithfully following, and he talks about their guiding principles. And one of the best ways to do this is to pay them a portion of the value they create for the firm. So what's he saying? Okay, if you create value for the firm, it means you're creating profit for the firm, then we're going to profit share with you. Okay. Some companies use this, some others don't. It's probably a great way. It's probably something for you to consider as a great way to incentivize your employees. Okay. If we as a company grow by 10% next year and you've done a great job in helping us do that, your bonus is going to reflect that at the end of the year. I remember working for a company one time, and they would just give, no matter if the company grew or if it shrank, whatever it is, they'd give the same lousy bonus at the end of every year for Christmas. And I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, it was one of the worst bonuses I've ever seen. So that was an issue right there. I mean, you couldn't even buy, maybe you could buy like 2 toys for your kids or something like that. It was just so lousy. But the problem with it is if the company was doing well, that's what they would give. If the company wasn't doing great, that's what they would give. So where's the incentive to do better? Where's the incentive to help the thing grow? Right? There was no incentive because everyone got the same lousy bonus. I just remember that. It was almost an insult. It took me more time to go cash that check, than it was to actually go spend it and do something good with it. And then he says this, and this is what I started right here: total compensation should reflect total contribution. Total compensation should reflect total contribution. So again, our goal should be, how do we help people move to an investment mindset? Okay. And then it also needs to be, how do we incentivize our employees so that they are of service to the marketplace? Okay. So here's the question I want, based on what I just said, I want to make sure you're listening to this, because that was gold that I just dropped there at the beginning. I'm going to write something, but maybe I'll write a book on that sometime, because that was such a revelation for me in the past few days about that. So here's what I want you to do. 2 things. Number 1, summarize what I said about giving taking, investing. Okay. Which one do you think? And again, you can push back on this if you want, but which one do you think is more important to marketplace service? Okay. So again, go back to what I said. Don't make up a bunch of stuff here. Again, I'm reading through your stuff, so I'll see if you make it up. So just go back and read through that and just kind of paraphrase what I said there. And then here's what I want you to think about. Uh, I want you to answer the question: what is the role of incentives in service to the marketplace? And then number three is this. So three things that you're going to do here. One is kind of paraphrase what I talked about: giving, taking, investing. Okay. And then I want you to talk about what the role of incentives is, what the role of incentives should be, can be, in the role of market service to the marketplace. And then number three is this: what do you think, or what have you seen to be what have you seen in your experience, or what are some things that you're thinking about that could be good incentives to help employees have a mindset of service to the marketplace? That's all I got for you today, and I hope that this has added value to you. Again, I'm really looking forward as we keep diving into it, our mission, kind of where we're going. I'm very excited for us to continue to talk about service and then get to our mission, as you're going to be writing out your mission and how do you determine what that is, and how do you determine how to live that out, hopefully for the rest of your life. Hey, thanks so much for listening today. I'll see you on the next podcast. You take care.